Now let's go over a case study. So this will actually go over how I purchased a 26 unit apartment complex with $60,000 down. So this is actually my first apartment complex that I ever purchased in Oklahoma. And I just wanted to share a step-by-step guide on what I went through when going through the process from start to finish. And I hope this adds a lot of value and connects all the dots for you. So let's go over what the deal looks like. As I mentioned, it's a 26 unit apartment complex, which I purchased for $520,000. How did I come up with that offer price? I actually used one of my methods. I looked up the tax assessed price. Remember, this is public information. It can be found easily by Google searching the county. And then once you put in the address in the county tax assessor's office website, it'll actually populate what the tax assessed price is. So this is usually my initial starting offer price. I was fortunate that the owner accepted it immediately, and I kind of knew from my experience that offering and getting accepted the tax assessed price, it's typically under appraised value, so you get a lot of equity day one. Next, I obtained this property by sending out 300 mailers per month for 6 months. As I mentioned, I'm a big advocate for direct mailing campaign. It does take a long time. Each letter costs around $1.50 each, and I outsourced the lettering to a company called Yellow Letter Complete. So it was pretty passive on my end, and the key was just consistently doing it for 6 months. Next, the owner of this 26 unit, who's actually an attorney, responded to me via email. And he actually only responded to me via email. I never actually talked to him over the phone. I think him being an attorney, he wants everything written so that there's a document trail. And my approach to this is I want to use the method of communication that the owner prefers. If they prefer it via phone, I will talk over the phone. If they prefer it via text, I would do it via text. If they want it over email, I would do it over email. So remember, think of the owner first and cater towards them, and that will help you build trust. Next, with this deal, I actually worked directly with the owner. There were no agents involved. Luckily, the owner, I guess he was licensed in Oklahoma to represent himself, and he kind of provided me with the purchase and sale agreement. But after doing a second deal, I learned that these documents are just public. You can literally Google Oklahoma purchase and sale agreement, and you can find the standardized template online. And it honestly takes about maybe 5 to 10 minutes to fill out yourself. And if you don't even know, you can use your title insurance company, and they can provide you with the purchase and sale agreement as well. In terms of the loan terms, I actually went through Bank of the West, which I found through a mortgage broker. As I said before, you always need a team of at least 3 to 5 mortgage brokers on your team, as well as 3 to 5 lenders. The more, the better. I had to do 25% down, which come out to 130K. I had it 10-year fixed at 4.3% interest and 30-year amortized. As I mentioned, I advocate for having a longer fixed term, so typically 7 to 10 years. Bank of the West did have a 3 to 5 year fixed option at a lower interest rate, but I just wanted to lock in that 4.3% interest rate in case there are any delays in renovations, or maybe I didn't want to renovate anymore. In terms of occupancy, it was 92% occupied, so 24 out of 26 were occupied, and it was generating around $11,000 per month, a month average. The owner hasn't raised rents in over 3 to 5 years, and the average rent was around $450 per unit, and that actually included utilities. So the average cost of utilities for gas, electric, water turns out to be around $150. So essentially, I was only getting around $300 a month in rent, but at the purchase price, I'm still above that 1% rule. So definitely, it will cash flow. In terms of due diligence, as I advocate, always do a full inspection of all units. So I did an inspection of all 26 units, And this inspection was expensive. It costed me around $7,000. We had 3 inspectors there, as well as the property manager, as well as myself and the owner. And we basically spent a full 8-hour day and walked through all 26 units. It was a long and tiring day, but ultimately, after kind of doing a full inspection, I had a general contractor look at what needed to be repaired, and he gave me a quote of around $120,000. So what I did was I provided the inspection report along with the quotes, and then I sent an amendment to the contract asking for $120,000 in seller repair credit for a new roof, water heaters, furnaces, anything. Initially, the owner said no, I'm selling the property as is, but he stated that, well, if you lower it, I may consider it. So I ended up cutting in half, split the difference, and ended up receiving a $70K repair credit, which helped lower my down payment. So essentially, I spent $7,000 to analyze my 26 units fully, and it ended up getting me $70,000 back in seller repair credit. As I mentioned, don't be penny wise and pound foolish. The property actually appraised at $750,000 day one by Bank of the West. So I essentially gained almost around 300K of equity day one if you include the seller repair credit as well as my offer on tax assessed price. This is why I always preach that the tax assessed price will always be under what the appraisal value is. So you always will get instant equity day one. So for step one, you need to understand residential versus commercial real estate. I like to break it down in a very simple manner to kind of help explain the concept. So for residential real estate, the value is based on sales comparable. And residential entails 1 to 4 units. So it's single family home, duplex, triplex, and quadplex. These are very popular for people starting off and trying to house hack, so everyone knows about residential real estate. For commercial real estate, the value is based on the income it generates. So it's based on the net operating income, NOI, divided by the market cap rate. For those of you who need a refresher, the net operating income is the income minus expense, and this does not include debt service. The market cap rate is determined by the market. This is very easy to find out if you talk to multiple brokers. If you look at the appraisal report for Oklahoma, it's an 8-cap market. And I found that out by calling multiple brokers, as well as that's what it stated on my appraisal report. Commercial real estate applies to 5+ units. And the example I like to give is, let's just say you had 2 single family homes sitting right next to each other. One single family home rents for $5,000 a month, and the neighboring house rents for $10,000 a month. When you go to sell the houses, both houses are valued based on the same sales comparable, so they're valued exactly the same. That is what happens in residential real estate. But in commercial real estate, if I had a 10-unit apartment complex that has a net operating income of $5,000 a year, and the neighboring 10-unit apartment complex has an NOI of $10,000 a year, the apartment with the NOI of $10,000 a year is worth double. So this is the power of commercial real estate. You can as you increase the cash flow, it will increase the net operating income, which will force the appreciation of the value. This is why once I learned about commercial real estate, I never looked back. Let's continue talking about residential versus commercial real estate. For residential, typically it requires a lower down payment options, especially if it's a primary residence, which is why it makes it very easy for somebody getting into residential real estate. You only need 3.5 to 10% down to get your own first primary residence if you have a nice W-2 income job. Typically, the loans is 30 years fixed with the best interest rates, and the lenders focus more on the individual. The common question they ask for is, what's your debt to income ratio or DTI ratio versus the property? On the other hand, in commercial real estate, The down payment's typically 25% down. Typical loan is fixed for 3 to 10 years, amortized over 25 to 30 years, and you have a higher interest rate compared to residential real estate. What's nice about commercial is the lender focuses more on the property versus the individual. The lenders focus on the debt service coverage ratio. The DSCR has to be greater than 1.25. So for me personally, I own around 5 residential single family homes. And after a while, what happens is my debt to income ratio went so high that it made it hard for me to continue buying residential real estate. So by kind of nature of the beast, I had to transition over to commercial real estate where they focus more on the income versus focusing on me. So as I mentioned, they focus on the debt service coverage ratio. And sometimes on the smaller apartment complexes, they will look at me a little bit, but as long as I have a nice W-2 job or I have some decent income coming in, that usually checks off. They're mostly focused on the property. So what I did was I bought my first apartment complex so well, this 26 unit. Like I said, it made 300K in equity day one. So the bank is not too worried about me personally when they literally have $300,000 of equity themselves day one. So that's what's nice about commercial real estate and why a lot of people transition over. Let's kind of recap as to step one and what the key points are. For simplicity of the math, I made it a 20 unit instead of a 26 unit. But let's just say you purchased a 20 unit apartment complex for $600,000 with 20% down. So that's $150,000. If you own the 20 unit apartment complex, and let's just say you spend $10,000 per unit for a total of $200,000 total, and you can raise your rents by $200 per unit per month, you essentially increase the net operating income by about $480,000. So apartment complexes, what's nice about the economies of scale is your expenses are typically fixed. So when you do raise the rents, you will pocket a lot more of that money. And assuming an 8 cap market for Oklahoma, you basically increase the value of your apartment complex by about $600,000, which essentially doubled the value of the apartment complex. So now your new value is $1.2 million. So if you were to do a cash out refi, assuming a 75% loan to value, your new loan will be at $900,000. If you minus that versus your existing debt of $450,000, you essentially get back your initial $150K down payment plus $200K in renovation plus another $100,000 in profit, all tax free. And basically you're increasing the velocity of your money. You've done the burst strategy, and now you can snowball your money into a bigger deal. Now let's go on to step two, and step two is finding off-market deals. Most deals on LoopNet or Crexy are overpriced. Most of these brokers have funneled these deals through 50 to 100 investors, and they all said no to the deal. And there must be a reason why they said no to the deal. Most deals brought to you by brokers are overpriced as well. Same issue here. A lot of brokers, they're paid when they close on a deal, and they just want to give it to people who they know are big fish, big players, and they know they can close because a broker wants to spend the least amount of effort in order to get their 3% commission. And oftentimes brokers, when they bring you a deal, they're bringing it to 50 other investors as well. And it creates this huge bidding war. It becomes best and final again, best and final. And at that point, the property is just so overpriced, it just doesn't make sense for me anymore. As I mentioned, brokers only like to work with established operators with a track record. Remember, brokers are incentivized by getting commissions. They're not in the business of investing in real estate. They just want to get their 3% commission and move on to the next deal. So the solution to this is you have to go off market and direct to owners. When you're starting off in multifamily, lenders do not take you seriously, brokers will not take you seriously, and even some owners will not take you seriously. So what you have to do is go off market, go direct to the owners, and build trust. Now the question is, how do I get off market deals? And the method that I've had success with is starting a direct mail campaign. Believe it or not, snail mail can be highly effective, especially for mom and pop owners. In this digital age, mailing is a lost art. Everyone cold calls, they'll cold text, they'll send you emails, and to be honest, most of those go straight to spam. Like when I get cold called by virtual assistants overseas, the number that pops up is telemarketer, spam, and I immediately just send that call to voicemail and delete the voicemail immediately. So believe it or not, do not underestimate snail mail. It's actually pretty powerful and effective, especially it's a lost art. For data, I use PropStream. It's $100 a month. You can do a 7-day free trial. PropStream's very similar to batch leads, but in my market in Oklahoma, I had a lot more leads in PropStream versus batch leads, which led me to choose PropStream. For PropStream, this is the search criteria that I use. The property has to be purchased at least 2 years ago. It's between 4 to 100 units. Mom and pop tend to own things under 100 units. That's kind of the nice sweet spot where you don't have institutional buyers, but your average investor, it may be too large of a deal. And why we include 4 units is sometimes a 16-unit apartment complex might be classified as 4 quadplexes. So that's why I like to include the number 4 instead of making that a 5, because it may help you kind of capture those smaller apartment complexes. For search criteria, you put apartment complexes in multifamily. There's many different names. There's high-rise apartment complexes, garden-style apartment complexes. Just make sure you select all of those and you select your desired state. Once you have your list, you're going to export everything into Excel. In Excel, sort it. You're going to delete duplicate owners and incomplete addresses. Remember, in multifamily, a lot of owners may own multiple apartment complexes, so just sending out one letter to that specific owner is sufficient enough. And at the end, you want to merge this with your desired letter template. So let's dive deeper into your direct mailing campaign. In average, to prepare your letters yourself, it's around 65 cents each. The majority of the cost is the stamp itself, which is around 50 to 55 cents each. The paper, the ink, and the envelopes are relatively inexpensive, especially if you buy on Amazon. You can find some pretty cost-effective options. Versus if you outsource the yellow letters complete, it's about $1.50 each. On average, I actually tried preparing 300 letters myself. It took me 8 hours. Some people, they do it with friends and family. In that case, it could be fun. It could be like a party. But in my mind, if you're going to multifamily, think like a business owner and outsource. Is it worth your time to spend one day on the weekend to prepare 300 letters yourself when essentially you're saving, 50, 60 cents per letter, and it's just not fun to do it at all for me. So for me, I'd rather work on something else and just outsource the yellow letters complete because it's a lot more scalable. What happens if you want to do 1,000 letters a month yourself? That's going to take a lot longer, but with yellow letters complete, you just pay the price and they'll take care of it for you. So next, I want to go over some key features on getting the best results for your direct mailing campaign. At best, you're going to get around a 3% response rate, and it depends on your market. If you're in a hot market like California, expect a 1% response rate. In a not as hot market like Oklahoma, I'm getting around a 3% response rate. So for your envelope, you want to choose the A5 envelope. People will open this because it feels like a card. It feels as if a friend or a family member sent them a thank you card or invitation card. So it kind of creates that intrigue. Next, you want to handwrite the name and address and use a real stamp. The handwritten name feels a lot more personalized like it's coming from a friend or family member, versus something that's pre-printed, which people automatically assume is spam and they'll throw it away immediately. Next, you want to put your name and address on the back of an envelope. It creates more mystery since there's no sender name address on the front, so it kind of prompts the owner to at least turn the envelope over. And then from there, I actually do not seal the envelope. Instead, I'll actually tuck the flap of the envelope in. So when they turn over the envelope, they'll see that the letter has been opened. And it kind of creates intrigue, like, hey, who opened my letter? So it kind of prompts further investigation. And then once they open the letter, what's kind of key is you have to handwrite a call to action. For example, I'll state, John, call me at this number. And also, I'll handwrite a signature. And also, if you're a doctor, please include your doctor title. So the next question is, how often do I send letters? As I mentioned, on average, I was sending 300 letters per month. It cost me around $450 a month when I outsourced it to Yellow Letters Complete. Expect a 3% response rate, 9 to 10 calls within 1 to 3 weeks after mailing out the letters. And it's best to mail on Monday, because if you mail on Monday, they'll receive the letter by Thursday, Friday, and they'll typically be more settled in from the week and be more open to looking at the mail. To make a mailing campaign effective, you must hit each owner at least 7 times. Let me say that one more time. To make a mailing campaign effective, you must hit each owner at least 7 times. Consistency is key. Consistency is key. Around 10% of the addresses will not be valid. So oftentimes, if I send 300 letters per month, I get back 30 letters a month that have invalid addresses. This is very common, so do not be surprised that you'll be getting a lot of letters sent back to you. And if you receive a call, be sure to follow up within 24 hours. If they call you, leave you a voicemail, text you, or email you, make sure that you follow up within 24 hours, because these owners are getting hit by multiple investors, multiple letters, but they choose to call you. So please treat this call as if it was gold and respond accordingly. So let me keep in mind, in some perspective, is that what works today may not work 6 to 12 months from now. So that's why I like to do 300 letters per month, is because maybe I find out that the 300 letters I'm sending, the format's not very effective, so I may need to pivot. And why I pick 300 letters a month is because, I'm just operating myself. I don't have a full-blown business yet, and I want to kind of keep my marketing budget lower. So that's why I do 300, but obviously you can do the math. If you have a 3% response rate and you send out 1,000 letters per month, you'll get 30 calls a month, and that may increase your chance of closing a deal faster. So for me, I like to start out 300 letters per month, but it's really up to you and how you want to start. So let's ask, how many letters did I send? So I mailed 300 letters a month for 6 months, so a total of 1,800 letters, and I was essentially able to close on 2 deals with my direct mailing campaign. I closed on this 26 unit, and I actually closed on another 20 unit most recently. So I spent around $2,700 on mailers, but I've made over $250,000 with equity day one with just one deal. So when sending out letters, it's very discouraging starting off. I'll be honest, the first 1 to 2 months of sending letters, I had a very minimal response rate, but it starts to compound. Keep in mind, a lot of these owners, they will hold onto the letter and throw it into a drawer, or throw it onto the refrigerator, throw it onto a countertop, and a couple months later, when they are cleaning their drawer or just cleaning the countertop, they see your letter and they open it up and they may reach out to you. So the goal is, you just want to get the letters out there. You have to be consistent despite not hearing a response rate. On average, people send out around 1,200 letters before closing on their first deal. For me, I kind of averaged 900 letters to close on each deal. So what's kind of nice about this direct mailing campaign is you can start to track your metrics. If you read the book Traction, you want to know what your lead measures are. So, for example, I know that if I send 300 letters out, I'll have a 3% response rate, and it takes me on average 900 letters to close on one deal. So if I want to close on one deal a month, I can send out 900 letters a month, and with my current statistics, I should be closing on one deal a month. So that's what's kind of nice about tracking your metrics, and you only control how many letters you send out. But as I mentioned, it does cost money. If you send 300 letters a month, your letter expense is $450 a month, plus an additional $100 a month from PropStream. So at minimum, you need to commit $600 a month to a direct mailing campaign. If you cannot do that, then this method is not good for you. So after sending out your letters, the next step is to answer your phone. You must respond to all phone calls, all text messages, and all emails within 24 hours. Remember, these people reaching out to you, treat them like gold. You spent $600 a month to get someone to call you, so please act as if each call costs you $600. And remember, the key to the first conversation is to build trust and rapport. Remember, you are essentially a stranger that sent a letter. The longer you can keep the seller on the phone, the better. I typically average around 30 minutes to 60 minutes on my first call with the owner. The first call is considered a success if you can understand their pain points. Once you understand their pain points and their motivation, you can kind of cater your offer to address those pain points. Remember, people are emotional creatures. If you can kind of push the right buttons and address those pain points, it will help you build trust and rapport, and you're helping them out. So this is what I mean by creating a win-win situation. So some easy questions to ask are, how long have you owned this property? This is a great icebreaker question. People in real estate love talking about their properties, especially if it's a mom and pop owner who has owned this apartment complex for 30 years. Essentially, in their eyes, it's a kid that they have raised. So when you ask this question, they'll just start spewing a lot of information at you. And then whatever information you don't get from this initial conversation, you can ask, well, how many units is it? What's the current occupancy? What made you decide to sell this property? So a lot of times they'll say, oh, I'm looking to retire. I've been self-managing this property. I'm too tired to do that now. I just want to coast off into retirement, and that's why I want to sell. Maybe there's a situation where there was a death in the family member, and that parent was managing the apartment complex, and now the kids inherited the property and want nothing to do with this property, so now they're doing a sale. And a good question I like to ask is, and use this phrasing exactly, is what would a good price look like to you? And to be honest, sometimes people will not answer this question, in which case I will say, hey, I'm happy making an offer on this property, but I will need this financial information first. So, but some owners will give me a price. And once you have that price, you can then do your analysis and say, hey, thanks for giving me a price. Let me look into this deeper and run it by my lender, and let me get back to you. So as I mentioned, the goal of the first call is just to build that trust and rapport so that you're no longer a stranger that sent a letter. So, and then the key of the first call is just to have that follow-up. Just say, is it okay if I call you back in maybe 3 to 5 days? And if you specify that, please do follow up with the seller in 3 to 5 days. So for step 3, you need to understand pain points. And if you understand pain points very well, it can help you structure creative financing down the road. And I will go over that in a later topic. But in real estate, remember, you aren't buying properties. You are buying situations. There's a reason why they're responding to your letter when they know that they can just reach out to a broker, and the broker can list it on LoopNet, they can list it on Crexi, they can reach out to their pool of investors. So there is a reason why they're reaching out to you, and you must figure out the situation on the first call ideally. So what are some sellers' pain points? Or they recently divorced and just need to sell? And divorces is a very emotionally taxing process. and it's very stressful. So they're just focused on the emotional aspect of the divorce, and the last thing they want to worry about is trying to sell this property. So for them, they're focused on getting rid of the property as fast as possible, and that's why they need to sell. Another situation is the owner passed away and the kids want nothing to do with the property. This is the fear of every real estate investor that wants to create a legacy. Their hope is that one of their kids will take over the family real estate portfolio. But what happens is a lot of kids hate the real estate portfolio because they said, hey, my parents forced me to work at this apartment complex. My parents are always gone on the weekends. They couldn't take me out to play because they're working on the apartment complex. And they grow to resent that property and want nothing to do with it and would rather liquidate that asset and split the money between the 3 kids or the 2 kids and move on from it. Some mom and pop owners are looking to retire. A lot of people self-manage their own 26 unit on top of their own W-2 job, and at this point, when they're 50s and 60s, they don't want to deal with this anymore. They want to reap the benefits of all the hard work they've placed and just enjoy retirement. Is a property manager stealing? As I mentioned before, 9 out of 10 property managers are bad, and sometimes a property manager can steal. They know how to fabricate the paperwork and do everything. So, this happened to me one time where an owner reached out because a property manager is stealing and they're willing to sell it at a cheaper price and they wanted to sell fast. Does a property need lots of repair and the owner has no more money? As I mentioned, some owners are cheap. They're too cheap to do anything. They don't want to do any repairs. I got a 20 unit where 1 unit burned down and the owner was too cheap. He didn't have good insurance, which would have covered it if he had good insurance for that fire. And if he didn't renovate that burned down unit, what else is he not doing? There's a lot of other deferred maintenance, and maybe they just want to move on and not fix these issues, and they don't have the money to fix these issues. On this 26 unit, it needed around 120K worth of repairs, and I don't think the owner had 120K to do all those repairs, but he was willing to give me a seller repair credit because when we close on escrow, he gets a lump sum of the purchase price. And now he can allocate some of that lump sum back to me to repair some of these deferred issues. So figure out what the pain points are. The more pain points that you can figure out, you can better build trust with the seller and also create a better offer, because sometimes a traditional lender in a more creative finance structure may be more beneficial for both of you. For example, if the property is owned free and clear, you can do seller financing. If the property doesn't qualify for traditional lending, you can do subject to or master lease agreement. If the owner wants to take the equity and invest it in another deal, maybe they can sell or carry second 10 to 15%, and they will pocket about 85 to 90% of the money to go do their next venture. There's many ways to structure deals based on pain points. Some pain points may be, hey, I don't want a large capital gains tax, in which case seller financing or subject to may be a good option. Maybe the owner has a large prepayment penalty, and to bypass that, you can do subject to. So you basically take over the loan and you just pay the owner. So there's many ways to get creative, but it all starts once you understand the pain points. Next, during the phone conversation, hopefully you can obtain some financial information. So as a general rule of thumb, you want to get a T12, which stands for a trailing 12, which is the past 12 months of profit and loss statements. This can easily be obtained if they use a software like Rent Manager, AppFolio, or Buildium. And it also asks for a rent roll and explain that lenders will need these documents. At the end of the day, in order for me to close on your property, I need to get a lender involved, and they will ask for these documents. Unfortunately, most mom and pop owners have no records or handwritten records. If so, please help them create a profit and loss statement and a rent roll. There's easy to find templates for profit and loss statements and templates for rent rolls. What I've done in the past is if they didn't have electronic documents, I would be on the phone with the owner and one by one go through everything. Like when creating a rent roll, unit number 1 is a 2-bedroom unit and it rents for $500 a month, and this tenant lives in there. This is when their lease starts, this is when their lease ends, and this is their security deposit. I literally went down one by one on a 50-unit apartment complex that I was under due diligence with. And same with the profit and loss statement. Let's work backwards. What was your income for July 2022? What was your expense for July 2022? And just work backwards. If you do this, it'll build so much trust with the owners that they'll definitely want to work with you because you're making their life easier. Remember, you want to help make the process as easy and smooth as possible for the owners so that they want to work with you. And remember, owners that own apartment complexes may own other apartment complexes, and they may want to sell those deals to you as well. Once you are aligned with the owner, it becomes us against the bank instead of you versus me. This is a strategy that I use all the time. A lot of times I would say, hey, you wanted $1 million for this apartment complex, and I want to give you $1 million for this apartment complex. But when the lender underwrote the deal based on the profit and loss statement, the rent roll that you provide me, it does not hit the debt service coverage ratio of 1.25. Based on their underwriting, the lender said that they can only offer $800,000. So at that point, you're just saying, hey, it's not me that doesn't want to pay. The lender, my lender, the evil person, will not want to lend on your price. So at that point, I can offer a solution. So, hey, we can just go down to $800,000 and close on the deal with this lender. Or if you're adamant about your $100,000 deal, let's do some creative financing. Maybe if you own the property free and clear, you can become the bank and you set your loan terms. Or maybe if there's still a loan, we can do subject to, and I can just pay you, and then you can pay the lender, and then I'll take over all the day-to-day operations of the property, and the deed will be under my name. So this is when you start to pitch creative financing. So step 4 is submitting a letter of intent, or LOI for short. So in commercial real estate, the LOI is essentially a quick one-page non-binding agreement which provides the basic information. It provides the offer price, the down payment, what's the earnest money deposit, the due diligence contingency period, the loan contingency period, the earnest money deposit amount, the estimated close date, and the title company to be used. So for the offer price, went over 3 methods in determining the offer price. You can use the tax assessed method, which is the cheapest, the price per unit based on sales comps, and the net operating income divided by the market cap rate. For down payment, pretty standard at 25% down unless the lender wants more. Earnest money deposit, it ranges between 1 to 3% of the offer price. I typically lean towards the 1%. For due diligence contingency period, it's pretty standard. It's typically 30 calendar days. Loan contingency period is typically 60 calendar days. And these 2 periods are very important because this is when you can get back your earnest money deposit. Let's just say you do due diligence, you find out that there's a lot of issues with the apartment complex and you want to back out. Well, if you back out during the due diligence period, you can get back your earnest money deposit. And in terms of the estimated close date, typically 60 calendar days, and the title company used. For me, I like to use the title company that the owner has trust with to make it seem, more trustworthy that, hey, I want to use your team and your people. But if they don't have one, I'll just recommend one that I've used in the past. But kind of a key point is the letter of intent, it's meant to be very simple, 1 page, nothing too fancy to set the terms. And if they agree to the LOI, at that moment, you have to work on the purchase and sale agreement, which is the more formalized document. So here's a sample letter of intent or LOI letter. As I mentioned, you want it to be very simple, 1 quick, 1 page. Shouldn't be complicated because all those details will be more delineated in the purchase and sale agreement. The point of the LOI is just to get the key basic terms settled. So let's just say your LOI is accepted, the owner signed it, now due diligence begins. So the first step you want to do is send the earnest money deposit to the designated title company. So you want to reach out to that title company either via email or phone and ask for the wiring instructions, and make sure you verify the wiring instructions over the phone before you wire any money to prevent you from being scammed. So after that, you'll start working on the purchase and sale agreement, and typically you'll have around maybe 3 to 5 days from the LOI being accepted to complete the purchase and sale agreement. So if you're working with a real estate broker, they'll typically prepare this for you and have you e-sign it. It's pretty easy. But if you don't have a real estate broker, so I closed on 2 apartment complexes without a real estate broker, most states have their own state-specific purchase and sale agreement. So literally, you just Google search, insert state. So for me, it was Oklahoma, purchase and sale agreement. And then from there, you'll find state-specific documents that you just download and you just fill it out. And it's pretty self-explanatory. The Oklahoma purchase and sale agreement was maybe 7 pages, and it required me to have a traditional financing supplemental document, which was 3 pages. And it was pretty easy for me to fill out. So as I mentioned, you don't need to work with a real estate broker. I prefer not to because they construe the message and would rather work directly with the owner. And there's even state-specific forms for seller finance deals. So let's just say a traditional lender will not lend on the apartment complex and you want to move forward with seller financing. They have forms as well. In Oklahoma, they literally have a seller finance standardized document as well. So once you have the LOI signed, you will send that along with the purchase and sale agreement to your lender and your mortgage broker. And why you need to do that is they'll take you a lot more seriously when you send over those purchase agreements over to them, because they know that if they close on the deal, they'll get paid their commission. So that's what creates an incentive. And even before the LOI is submitted, to be honest, I will engage my lender and my mortgage broker out the gate with the financial information. So I'll send them the T12 and the recent rent roll and kind of a high level picture of what I think what the market rents will be, and they'll start underwriting the deal. So what's kind of nice about this is while you're underwriting the deal yourself, you're also having a lender and a mortgage broker underwrite the deal with you to kind of help check for any missed spots or any gaps in your analysis. I like to definitely engage them in the beginning, but they can find you annoying after a while because you may be doing this for 5 to 10 properties and you don't have a single LOI or purchase sale agreement. So typically I try to build a relationship with them, and once I kind of understand how they underwrite the deal, then I'll kind of underwrite that deal for them before presenting it to them to make their job easier. As I mentioned, you want to make everyone's job easier so that they like working with you. So attached is a sample purchase and sale agreement from the Oklahoma Real Estate Commission. So this is actually what I use when I purchased both my apartment complexes in Oklahoma. And I found this on Google. If you look at the bottom left corner of the document, it actually lists the official document name. You can see it's OREC Commercial Improved. And if you literally just Google that, it'll populate the document and you can start typing everything out. So it's pretty self-explanatory. You need to have a financing supplement. You put the seller name. You can put the buyer's name. So for me, I'll usually put my holding company LLC and or assigns. Sometimes I don't want to open a new LLC if I know I'm not going to close on the property or it fails due diligence, because it costs me about $500 to open a new LLC. So I'll typically just specify my name or my holding company and or assigns. And if I do want to close on the deal, then I'm just going to assign it to my new LLC that I'm opening up. And typically the property should be described in which county. As I mentioned, you can find that via Google. In terms of a legal description, where I typically look on is the tax records, which is also public information. Typically, I just will copy and paste it, and then here you'll delineate the purchase price, what's the earnest money deposit, and which title company are you using. So everything here, it's a 7-page document. It's pretty self-explanatory, and if you need help and you're not using a broker, you just can ask a title insurance company, and they're happy to help walk you through this process. So as I mentioned, some states actually have a seller financing agreement. So I found this Oklahoma Real Estate Commission seller financing agreement on Google under the same area where I found the purchase and sale agreement for Oklahoma State. So as I mentioned, it's not that difficult. It actually kind of walks you through um, the different options that you have. Like for example, the mortgage carried by seller, it's amortized. Mortgage carried by seller, one payment. Mortgage carried by seller, amortized with balloon payment. And it delineates if there is a prepayment penalty. So as I said, it's not that difficult. You can find this document online, and then you can just walk through it with the seller on how you want to structure the terms of seller financing. And what's beautiful about seller financing is you can choose your terms. At the end of the day, the owner is the bank, and they can do it whatever that makes sense and creates a win-win situation for both parties. So let's go back to my 26 unit and let me talk about the vision for the 26 unit. So my goal was to renovate about half of the units for $8,000 each. How did I come up with this number? My property manager walked through all the units, and this is what he suggested. He needs brand new kitchens because the kitchen cabinets could not be saved. So we use new shaker kitchen cabinets, which can be bought from Home Depot or Lowe's, and they're very cost effective, very easy to set up, and look very modern. So it makes perfect sense when adding it to a rental property. We're getting new laminate countertops. In Oklahoma, laminate is more cost effective and people are okay with it. In California, quartz is the hottest rage. So as I mentioned, you want to rely on your boots on the ground and your property manager for these recommendations. We're going to get brand new LVP flooring. What's popular in Oklahoma is a light to medium gray LVP flooring. That's actually popular in California as well. So what I love about LVP is that it's durable, it's scratch resistant, it's waterproof, it's inexpensive. It can be placed in the kitchen, the living room, bathroom, bedroom. It can be placed everywhere. We're going to paint the walls a medium gray wall paint. Pretty neutral color. Why medium gray is because if it gets dirty, it's kind of hidden a little bit, and it's not too dark where that it's overwhelming. A light gray can get a little bit, if you have a dirty spot, it's more obvious, but on a medium gray, it's not as obvious. And we're actually getting new appliances. So I was actually lucky that I was able to buy lightly used appliances from another apartment complex that my property manager is managing for. Apparently, that apartment complex wanted to upgrade to all black appliances, and they only own those current appliances for like 2 to 3 years, and they were lightly used. So I was able to purchase those appliances at a discount, which saved me a lot of money. And actually, by rearranging the kitchen cabinets, we're actually adding a stainless steel dishwasher, which hopefully will get us more rent and attract a higher quality tenant. So once renovations are done, we believe rents can hit around 700 to 725 for the 1 to 2 bedrooms, which is a $300 increase from the current market rents. So right now we're kind of renting out around 450 to 500, but it's all bills paid. So all the utilities, that covers gas, electricity, water, sewer. That's another $150 per unit. So effectively, we're only getting around $300. So it's a pretty significant raise that we can raise a rent to $700. Plus, the tenant will pay for their own utilities. So what's nice about multifamily is we can renovate half the units, 5 of the units, just to test the market and give the option of premium units and standard units. Sometimes we may find out that we might have over-improved these units, and we may not be getting much of a rent increase, and it's not worth it to do this $8,000 per unit renovation. And if that's the case, then I'm not going to do any more renovations. Just do standard make-readies to make the apartments clean, practical, and functional. And even without major renovations, I can still raise my rents by about $100 to $150 per unit. But the premium units, we believe we can get $300 to $400 in rent raises. So what a lot of apartment complexes do is they renovate half, so you can have some premium units and you can have some more cost-effective standard units, because maybe not everyone can afford the more premium units. And I did replace the entire roof of the seller repair credit, which was really nice. So, I was able to finish that over one weekend, and I got a brand new roof now. So now the insurance company will love me. So who will handle the renovation Luckily for me, my property manager is a general contractor who will handle all renovations for a 5% general contractor fee. So from the get go, I knew I wanted to renovate this apartment complex. So I purposely chose a property manager who would function as my general contractor as well to take a lot of the work off my plate. And what I found out was renovations was actually delayed by 6 months due to labor shortages. As I mentioned, always expect the unexpected. So we're supposed to start renovation back in January of 2022, but we started renovations in June. And now our limiting step is we're waiting for a bunch of the kitchen cabinets to come, and those are being delayed from Home Depot. So now we're having further delays. So as I mentioned, things take 25% longer and cost 25% more, and I'm living proof of my 26 unit. So our goal is to kind of renovate 3 units per month. So I currently have 6 vacant units right now. So in about 2 months, we should be able to finish all 6 units. And this is assuming once my kitchen cabinets come and are finally shipped. And once they're done, we plan on renting them out. So we may offer it to the existing tenants that are there who want to upgrade. Or if not, we're just going to advertise it outside and see who bites. And we can slowly churn over the units. So let's just say all the vacant units are done and rented out. We can move out 3 tenants and then renovate those 3 units if we want to. Or we just can keep it as is and take our time. That's what's kind of nice about multifamily. You have a lot of options and a lot of control when doing your renovations. So what's the end goal for this property? So my goal is to do a complete full cycle BRRRR in 2 to 3 years. I want to renovate about half the units, so about 13 of the 26 units will be renovated for $8,000 each, and hopefully raise the rents to $700 per month. If the renovations don't get me that $700 per month in rent, I just may stop renovations and just touch up the current units and make it, clean, practical, and functional, and just raise the rents by about $100 to $150 as is. Once the property is stabilized, my goal is to present my T12 to a lender and a rent roll to a lender to do a cash out refi. So I actually anticipate this property will be worth around $1.5 million based on the net operating income divided by cap rate method, as well as to the average cost per unit. So my market kind of averages around $50 or $50K per unit, and I bought this thing at $20K per unit. So as you can tell, I have a lot of meat on the bone that I can access, assuming that the renovations become successful and that I can raise to the market rent of $700 per month. So let's run the numbers. So assuming a 75% loan to value, my new loan is going to be 1.1 million. The existing loan is 390K. Renovation is 200K. So at the end of the day, when I do a cash out refi, I'm actually going to get back all of my renovation costs, all of my down payment, as well as some additional $500,000 tax free. This is the power of value add real estate, and you must be patient. Commercial real estate is like planting a tree, an orange tree. When you plant it, it takes 2 or 3 years for that tree to grow after watering it for that long, and finally it's producing fruit. And actually, I was actually offered $1.3 million on a 26 unit without doing any renovations back in June from an investor who was doing a 1031 exchange. If I sold that, that would have been an $800,000 profit without doing anything in less than 1 year. Many people are telling me that I'm stupid for not taking this offer, but I am a true buy and hold investor, and I think long term. For me, people take that quick, instant money, but for me, I'm in it for the long haul. I know over the span of 30 years, this apartment complex, the rents will go up, the value will go up, and I already did all the initial legwork. It's very hard to find a good property, to renovate the property, to stabilize the property, and at that point, all the hard work is done. Why would I sell off this property when after I've done all the hard work? I want to reap the benefits of all my hard work, all the stress of doing all the renovations. Since you renovated the property, I don't need to have any major capex concerns. I have a brand new roof. I have new kitchens. When we rip out the wall, we'll assess the electrical and the plumbing. So remember, think long term. But I can see on the other side, people might just say, well, you could have taken the $800,000 profit, 1031 exchange that into a larger apartment complex and scale even faster. And yes, that's true, but it's going to take me 6 to 12 months to find that next deal. With a 1031 exchange, you have a 6-month window, and it's very stressful on what to do. So for me, I prefer to just cash out refi, pull that money out, and snowball it.